November 21st meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission to order. The first order of business is the approval of the minute summary from July 18th. Has everybody had a chance to see it?
Yes.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion's been made to approve the minutes of July 18th. Has been seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion's approved. Minutes are approved. Okay, under new business, the first item, we have two public hearings. The first item will be public hearing for annexation number 78. Resolution 24-09, High Falcon Realty Corporation. Andrea?
I'm sorry, real quick, there is a recommended change to the agenda that the applicant for item D, known as the Willows, has requested a continuance in their application so they can meet with the neighbors that here at the case of last work session. I don't know if you want to.
Does anyone have any objection to holding that off to a future meeting?
Do you need a formal motion?
I think the amended agenda and I would think you have to amend the agenda and for continuance. Yeah.
To continue the.
Yeah,
Second.
motion been made to continue the item D on the agenda to the next meeting.
I'll second.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. So
Thank you.
that item will show up next month. And hopefully, whatever issues they have, they can get resolved.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, new business. Andrea, we'll let you make your presentation.
Thank you. We're here tonight for a public hearing for annexation 78. This is a property along 140 and right here is it's the Jeep dealership across the street from the new Len Stoller site. It is being annexed through a connection, actually they kind of already exist through the previous Sheets annexation of on 140. It's a 6.24 acre parcel. They are looking to do an addition as well as a car wash for the Jeep dealership. So that's what caused them to come in and talk to us and was really the main cause for this annexation. So the zoning in the county is C3, which is high commercial. We're interested in bringing them in as to be business. They're in the water and sewer service areas for both. Actually, it's interesting because the back portion of this parcel does not have service, but I think that's a topography issue. So it's the front building, the front part that's already developed and that will be developed. This was introduced to Mayor and Common Council on the 9th of September. Sent it immediately to the county for any comments. Did not really get any comments, and it was sent to the Carroll County Planning Commission on October 15th. And then sent their Board of County Commissioners signed the comment letter, which is in your packet on October 24th.
So there is no waiver of zoning required because it's very consistent with the county zone.
Yes, it is commercial to commercial, and you'll see in your packet, the state now has kind of been consistent. I'm not saying every time that a zoning waiver should be required. The county has said multiple times they disagree with this because both zoning districts do allow for residential purposes.
Yes, correct.
The first time that the county, they argue back and forth about it, and now the county just doesn't even bring it up at any of their meetings because they said, we've already told them that this is incorrect. Both zoning districts allow for housing. At first, they didn't think the county one did and ours theirs did not and ours did. So they were like, oh, well, you could have houses on this site. So obviously it's really a change in the zoning. It's significant. But both zoning districts allow for some type of residential unit. In addition to that, this is also a already commercial site. Mark and I were just talking about the state should really look at the property that they're writing the comment letter about because it doesn't really make any sense.
So if the county says we don't need a waiver, we don't need a waiver, because they're the ones that would give us a waiver,
Exactly.
so it doesn't matter.
It comes from the
The state.
commissioners.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the commissioners did not feel that, the county staff did not feel the way that the commissioners, their comment letter did not reflect any need for a zoning waiver. This is just because.
So the intent of the effort is to bring the property into the city, make some expansion and put in a car wash.
Yes, so they need additional water. So that is the reason why that they need to come forward.
So just to clarify, because I wasn't quite sure, because sometimes we've done this situation where they sign an annexation agreement, we let them move forward with the work through the county, and then we take them in.
That was not the case.
This is not the case. They have not started the work. So are they going to have an updated site plan at some point in time when?
Yes, it's when they come forward with the car wash and with the addition. They haven't come forward with any plans yet.
Oh,
This
okay,
is just.
so and that will come through us, not through the county then, because then we're annexing it in now. Okay, understand. Great.
So it's gonna be coming before the mayor and common council for public hearing on December 9th. So, and that is all, unless you guys have any questions.
Any question I have about car wash, is it gonna be a car wash just for the,
Yes,
just
only
for
for,
them or for the public?
no, it's just for them. Len Stoller just finished on the other side their
Right.
own personal car wash, and that came before this body, for approval. I was, the addition and car wash, would have to come before this body anyway also, but yeah, it's only for their.
For them, okay.
And what we do is, so the Lens Solar across the way, what we do here, the car wash itself is a separate building, has its own water meter. The new water meters now allow us to monitor water usage. So if they increase beyond the number of vehicles we allow per day, by how much water is allocated, we'll know. So it would be the same case here. We will commit to use on site, like the number of cars as we did from Lens Solar, and also require some type of recycling component with that as well. I think total of Lens Solar is 8 gallons per car with the recycling system. So again, we monitor, we'll limit, and that'll be part of any site plan, same type of recommendation as we move forward.
Do you require them to have the car wash in a separate building, or is that just how?
That was just them, that was, they
Okay.
had in separate buildings, but if it's not, if it's attached, I think we'll still be asking for a second water meter, so we can monitor that specifically. It's a little bit different than we normally do because this is, because the type of use that it is.
So because you want to make sure you can monitor that use.
Exactly, and it's a type of thing where we don't want to shut down the entire property. If we so had to, if they would go beyond what the requirement is, we can just deal with the car wash separately, so it's.
Okay, so we always have a separate meter on the car wash.
And other discussions we've had.
Yeah,
with other
that's correct.
properties.
That's why I was asking about that. Okay.
And we're also, this is also Len Stoller portion of their business, so they're very familiar too with, we're working with the same people that we worked with for the previous.
Street, that's it, so this is a car wash for that.
Yeah, so they're really familiar with everything that we would be requiring of them moving forward.
But it would still be one water line connected into a property that would branch off 2 separate meters.
Gotcha, okay.
Okay, any other questions? So it's time for recommendations.
Well, public, you gotta open up the.
Excuse me. Yes, now it's time to open the floor for public hearing and public comments. Anybody would like to say something on this annexation? This is the opportunity.
You're all looking at me, but I'm not here for this one. I appreciate it.
I get it.
You did not see the applicant. Sure.
Well, hearing no comments, the hearing's closed.
And we do have in the mouth that when of how to proceed and move forward. The recommendation that staff is asking is that the planning commission forward this with a positive recommendation or a favorable recommendation to the mayor and council.
Cool, take that much.
I'll make it. Recommend that we forward the annexation request to city council
Based on
based on what's
what's written on the screen.
what's on the screen.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded for the City of Westminster Planning and Zoning Commission forward resolution 24-09, High Falcon Realty Corporation. Annexation number 78 to the City of Westminster, Mayor and Common Council with a favorable recommendation. Are there any comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The recommendation will pass on to Mayor. Now you're here for the next one, right?
Correct. That's okay.
Then you can't build a guy because I looked at you. Okay, next, we have a public hearing for annexation number 80, resolution 24-06, Maryland Home Builders LLC. We'll open the public hearing with comments from the staff. Then we'll turn to Ms. Miller.
Here is the property, this is Ridge Road, and so the address for this property is 54 Ridge. It used to be a doctor's office and a doctor's office and house together. Many people know the property. It is improved with just the single family house or the single home here. It is 2.505 acres. And the reason that this property is coming forward, that they're going to rehab the current existing house into a single family, but also is interested in the potential of subdividing the lot as well. So county zoning is R10,000, it would be the same in the city. It is in water and sewer. Once again, that possibility of subdivision and the interest in subdivision is what is bringing the property into question for annexation. So we brought this this was introduced before Mayor and Common Council on September 23rd. On the 24th, we immediately sent it to the county to start their 60-day review. November 6th, it went before the Planning Commission for the county, and then the Board of County Commissioners sent a comment letter on November 14th. And there are several people here to discuss this, to answer any questions that you may have. Though once again, the county did say they had a comment letter that said that in their opinion, it should need a zoning waiver. Once again, the county did not feel that way. It's a difference in the densities between our R10,000 and the county's R10,000 with, or special exception or something along those lines where they felt that more lots would be possible with their zoning or something along those lines. So
They both allow for single family detached and semi-detached. The semi-detached area for the city is less than the county's area for a semi-detached building. But again, I think this goes back to what Andrew mentioned earlier. If you actually look at the property, the size of the property, I don't think there's any feasible way that you can accomplish a higher density. Whether by single family would be the same size. It's a semi-detached, it's a little bit different, or by semi-detached. So again, it's MVP standard comment, but staff agrees with the county that there is no.
So the state is really going down a rabbit hole here, because I mean, it's R10,000 in the county and R10,000 in the city. I mean, you're never gonna have exact comparison to everything in your zoning code. So
Exactly.
with their current interpretation, you would need a zoning waiver for everything,
Yep.
Right.
which is not the intent of the law.
That's correct.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Again,
The intent's
No
like, we
offense.
go from like commercial to industrial or
Yeah.
industrial to housing.
I would say.
That's for higher densities, like,
Exactly.
yes, like if you're going from R40,000 to
It was
R10,000,
always that way. historically.
yes.
Yeah,
That's
so
crazy.
so again, and then if it was 200 acres we're looking at, then we might have a statement, but again, if you look at this property.
This is the
I
Department of
just-
Planning?
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe I need to
So,
call a friend of mine there, I don't know, that's just crazy.
And now you can understand why the county just
Like,
said, we're
force it.
gonna move forward and you do not need a zoning waiver.
And we can.
So, then we agree, so nobody moved forward with a zoning waiver for that. This one is supposed to also go before the Mayor and Common Council on December 9th. For their public hearing.
And just briefly, I know there was some discussion about potential other uses, you probably heard through other people, but we do have a building permit just to rehab the building into a single family detached dwelling and nothing else. So again, that work is going on. The applicant's here to maybe explain what that is in the process, but it really is, as Andrea said, the potential for further subdivision, which led to need for additional water.
All right, any members have any comments? Mr. Huff, you have any comments?
So I guess I'm open to the idea of this property coming into the city, because I understand they want to do something, but I will say, and I just want to be record on this, because eventually this will come back to us.
Yes.
is I'm gonna be very sensitive to what the design of that subdivision looks like. Because having done subdivision work myself, you know, depending on what kind of density you're trying to get or what you're trying to do, I could do a subdivision there that would look pretty darn bad. Or I could do something that works with the neighborhood. And I think when you're developing a you know, a infill property like this, you need to be sensitive to the community that you're around. And I think we all know people that live around that area. So I just want to be clear to the applicant that, you know, just because we annex this into the town for water does not mean that, you know, you start doing a pure math calculation, try to get as much density as you can. Because I don't think, you know, based off of other plans that we've looked at over the past year, if it comes to us and it doesn't look good, we're not gonna be cool with it. And I guess I just wanna be on record on that now. But
I agree with that. I knew that property, yeah.
Yeah.
Fine to annex it, but
I mean, the development has to be compatible with the.
Correct.
That's just I think with an infill lot, that's critical.
yes,
And that's another step, but I think it's good to let people know up front what to expect. Okay. Since it's now this is the time for you when I look at you.
Thank you.
Say something.
Thank you. Good evening, Kelly Miller, 73 East Main Street, Westminster, Maryland, 21157. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant. Christina Landsman is present and to my right as well. She is the face behind Maryland Home Builders LLC. And so as you're aware, we're requesting this property be annexed. This is R10 in the county. We're requesting to come in R10. Now, obviously, you don't have a subdivision plan before you tonight, but I will preview you and let you know that what Christina plans to do with this is much under the density that math would allow for, if you would. She intends on keeping the existing house as a house and then subdividing the rear into a potential of 4 lots. This property is zoned 2.5 acres. So if you do the math, 43,560 square feet are in an acre under R10. Potentially there's more density available there, but we all know that development usually doesn't always match the math. Properties don't always match the math. There are environmental features, there are other site constraints. So obviously we understand we'll have to work through all of that as part of subdivision plan. RTF is on the job and will be the one preparing and presenting a subdivision plan. We understand that we would be back before this commission for the review of that plan. Tonight, we are requesting a favorable recommendation for the annexation component of this. And as Mark mentioned, if any of you are intimately familiar with this property, you know that it's gone through a few different ownerships of more recent. In fact, Mr. Voigt sat as the zoning administrator at the county when we had conversations about this property under a different owner, a previous owner. So there had been some discussions about a potential bed and breakfast or certain conditional uses in the county for this property. Those are off the table. Christina has now taken ownership and the intent is for this to remain a single family home. And just to be clear, I think Andrea kind of introduced this concept, but the impetus for this is it's the city's policy that any property that is eligible for annexation, if it needs water, that it go through the annexation process. So that's the bottom line here. The bottom line is that in order for those to have, they're in the service area. Okay, this property is in the service area. So health department is never gonna approve us for well and septic on this property. So in order for anything to happen, we have to go through the annexation process and request a water allocation for any net new water that this property would need for anything, even if it developed just that single family home, if it was deemed as that needed more water, you would still have to go through the same process. So that's kind of what started us here. I've only represented Christina more recently, so I was not involved in the preparation of the petition or the introduction on this. But that's kind of the background for you. And we are here, we're happy to answer any questions that you have, but this is pretty straightforward.
So notwithstanding the R10 zoning, the intent is to carve out 4 new lots
Yes,
and keep the current
that is
property
correct.
as single family.
so you're talking about 5 total lots. And again, I don't think we're in position to comment on your plan right now, because we
Understood.
haven't seen it.
Correct.
Wanna make
But
sure I
that
understood.
seems like a little much to me, just having done development myself and just looking at it visually there. But again, I don't have a plan to react to. But we're not here tonight to approve your subdivision plan, because we don't have a subdivision plan to approve.
And I
But
completely
I just wanna be
understand that, I just
clear.
wanted to
Yeah.
kind of give you a little foreshadowing
Yeah.
of what's to come. Annexations are never tied to a specific
Sure.
development, so we understand that,
Yeah.
and that will be an entirely separate process
Yeah.
that we will have to go through.
We just wanna be upfront
Understood.
with you all as the applicant, so there's no misunderstanding coming in, so.
Thank you.
Okay, any further comments from the public?
Is this Dr. Veets' old
It
house?
is, yes.
I just want to share with the Historic District Commission, he did approach us to ask if that house could become a museum somehow, with the Historical Society. And I did get a tour of it while he was still alive. And I will say that, maybe you do or don't realize, some really historic breakthroughs happened there. He was an OBGYN, which really laid the groundwork for that kind of care. Previous to his work and his partner's work, there'd been none with the county hospital. And he recognized the legacy that he had in influencing how women were cared for nationwide. And that house is really not so old as to be automatically considered historic. But what happened there is certainly historic and sort of bends the boundaries of history. So whatever you do, I really hope you preserve that as a matter of keeping that little piece along with what the future is.
We appreciate that.
Yeah.
Your name and address, please.
For Dr. Veets?
No, for you.
He's dead.
No, you.
You as a speaker.
He's a speaker. Okay, Chris McMaster,
Thank you.
12 North Church Street, here in Westminster, Maryland. And just overall historical spreader with the Historic District Commission.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Spread that manure around a little.
Okay, any further comments?
Well, I'd be happy to speak if you're ready for me.
Well, that's up to you.
Yeah.
I mean, you
Yeah.
can go for it. If you
Yeah.
have any specific questions, I just made you available.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, well, I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Christina and I'm happy to be here and happy to answer any questions and really kind of explain our goals and my vision. So I'm not sure if anybody's seen any of the renovations that we've done or any of my work before, but I truly do feel in my heart that I was the person to purchase this house because there were a lot of eyes on it and there were a lot of investors churning their wheels and what can I do with this place and this is cool and this is big and this has a high opportunity for subdivision and there was a lot of kind of competition and interest in it all along and kind of fell in love with the property, probably paid too much for the property, but that's my problem. Because my heart was in this property so much and the potential of it and the historic features of it and so yes, a lot of developers, they just strictly see how can I maximize subdivision here and see dollar signs and my heart is really in every project that I do. I'd love to share some of our designs and how we keep with the integrity if we're renovating a 100-year-old farmhouse or if the house is a little more modern or if it's a multifamily or just depending on the neighborhood that it's in, it's of utmost importance to me to have the cohesion and maintain the historic, especially if something is historic. I mean, there's just beautiful molding and fireplaces and tongue and groove ceilings and all of that we're working to preserve. I mean, every inch of it that we can preserve, we are going above and beyond to preserve the exterior, the back porch, the columns. So that's super important. It was brought to my attention early on, well, should you just bulldoze the place? And maybe financially, did it make sense for me to bulldoze the place? And I just, that was never really on the table for me because of what a beautiful place this is and a beautiful neighborhood. And I know that people in the neighborhood take a lot of pride in their homes and their neighborhood and in this home and all the history that was in it. So we know that that's of importance. We absolutely are working to maintain that. It's a beautiful kind of stately home and we're working to just kind of embellish that with, there is a housing crisis in our area. We do need more housing for sure. That's the prices of housing are high and there's certainly a demand. So we're looking for kind of a win-win here to add more housing to Carroll County, which is really, I think, a very big concern to people that live in the county, while also absolutely preserving the integrity and uniqueness of the property. So while I guess we could probably try to squish 8 houses in this or have all these non-conforming uses and ask for waivers and variances, that was never our intention. Our intention was to say, what are the zoning rules, ordinances, laws? And how can we follow this? And how can we restore this home and work within really the guidelines to make it as easy and seamless as possible for everybody else? So we're trying to stay, below that maximum density, making the lots as large as possible, keeping the existing home front and center, and really maintaining all that history that we possibly can. And we'd certainly be open to, I guess at this point in time, it can't be a museum because zoning says that it's only zoned to single family residential. So would that be something down the line that make it a museum? I don't know. I guess that's another discussion for right now. But certainly as of now, our intention was to keep it what the zoning was at the moment. That was the only basically allowed. I'm not sure you can speak better than allowed use, more or less. It was zoned single family residential, so that's what we're keeping it and maintaining it. And it's gonna be beautiful. It's coming together and there's a lot of molding and just beautiful things.
Was any thought ever given to, I heard that at one point somebody was saying about use bed and breakfast, you weren't thinking about that, but, Lord knows we could use a bed and breakfast in Westminster. But was any thought given to you about that or not? Really?
So absolutely. I mean, when I initially saw the property, you're like, there's so much potential here. I wanted to make things as easy as possible and follow, like, if the city says we really want a bed and breakfast, I'm totally open to trying to make it a bed and breakfast. Throughout the process, it seemed very clear to me that it needs to be a single family residential. So that's what we're making it. But if that's allowed, if that's what we're being pushed to make a bed and breakfast,
I just was
I'm open to
asking
that.
what
I don't
your
even
thought
know,
process
I don't
was.
even know off the top of my head, Dan, if that's allowed. We were talking about that under the county
I
zoning.
think tourist home is a
I don't know
special
the
exception.
Really, the tourist homes that will be our equivalent is.
Tourist home. Yeah, it's a bed and breakfast. I don't know why we term it tourist home, but that's what we do.
Up under the code.
I just, right. You just never know.
So could you please give your name and
Yeah.
address? for the
Christina Landsman, 6061 Moore Drive, Sykesville.
Any further questions? Any further comments?
I mean, again, I just noted my concern, but I mean, I think until we see a plan, it's hard for us to react.
It is.
Other than my grandfather owned the land and sold it to Dr. Beats.
Really? There's an extra Lindy.
Really interesting.
That is interesting.
Do you need to recuse yourself because of that?
I was like,
I think it's okay.
All right, so hearing no further comments, we'll close the public hearing at this time. And entertain a recommendation.
I'm going to make a recommendation. Department of Planning and Development recommends the City of Westminster Planning and Zoning Commission Board Resolution 24-06, Maryland Home Building LLC, annexation number 80. The City of Westminster Mayor, Common Council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Any further comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The recommendation will go forth to the mayor and council. And thank you, Jay, for reading that. So I didn't-
I learned fast.
Mr. Chair, could we take a 5-minute break before our next item? Yeah. That'll allow some people to clear out that.
Come back at 6:25, 6:35, excuse me.
6:35.
my part.
Okay, the next item is under old business, item C, work session on local map amendment LMA 2482.
Thank you. So this is an amendment to zoning map for 222 East Green Street. This is now the third work session, I believe, in this project. From the last project, I think the site and the design of the parking behind the building and the green space back along Winchester was acceptable. The Planning and Zoning Commission requested that the building be pushed back in line with the adjacent properties, and the applicant has done that. And they also, we went over the requirements for to approve the CN zone and the elements of those. Staff read those into the record and Planning Commission accepted those, and from that, Lynn Ward, the city attorney, has provided a recommendation letter and a draft ordinance. Ultimately, the hope is that the Planning Commission has a chance to look at that, coordinate with Lynn if you have specific questions or changes. So that can be brought back to the Planning Commission for hopefully the next meeting for approval, so the project can move to Mayor and Common Council. And then the only outstanding issue from the last meeting was the architecture. And Planning Commission asked the applicant to go back, provide additional options for the architecture. I'm sorry, so just quickly, just as a reminder, 222 East Green Street, you have Green Street, this is Winchester back here, is it or yes. And Ralph Street. The site plans changed a little bit from the elevations they provided. You have a little bit more of a bump out element, but again, the building is going to be set back and in line with the adjacent properties. Again, as mentioned, you have parking behind the building and a green space separating, providing a little bit of a buffer from the traditional existing residential behind. This was the initial option for architecture. I'm sorry, I want to also point out the Planning Commission was favorable to the 4-story option. So that's all we're looking at right now. This was the 4-story option that was provided initially. Staff provided some options of the architecture, and we did provide some of these pictures for you. Planning Commission, like this elevation, you had some elements pushing out back. It kind of gives more of a townhouse look, which was one of the issues that the Historic District Commission had as well, trying to make it more look like row homes or townhouses versus a large multifamily structure. And then also taking elements of the city into that design. The applicant has provided 3 options, and I'll have him, I guess I can't have him explain this because it's a work session and it's before the board, but so 3 options where he adapted the architecture to meet some of the elements the Planning Commission did like. Again, the building, you have elements that extend out, providing a little bit more of a step back, so it's not a flat front facade, trying to allow a little bit more depth. And also more of a design where you have elements where it looks more like row homes or townhouses versus just a large multifamily building. They maintain the balconies, which the Planning Commission was favorable with, but with the bump outs, the balconies now are recessed back in line with that bump out. So if you're walking down the street, you don't have the flat facade with these odd balconies extending out. So option 1 is more of a 4-story flat approach. So it looks more sizable if you're walking along the street. They've added brick elements as well as other material, try to break up that view. Option. Okay, yeah. But you still have the same element of a little bump out for traffic calming, parking in front of the building. Then an option B. The changes you get that top fourth story, which we talked about before, is kind of changed the material. It's set back a little bit more, so if you're walking in the street, you get more of a three-story look, some elements. They provided some other additional balconies and landscaping up in that third level. Maintaining the brick as well as a mixture of other material. It's more of a siding material. The other one was option A, provided a little bit more panel design. Then the final view, again, it's more similar to option B. Just have a uniform or a consistent coloring on the top. Again, it's pushed back a little bit. The third story, this three-story facade is pushed out a little bit further. Again, with the balconies kind of recessed, so they're not as dominant as in that design. And that's it. So again, I
There's
think,
also some different window treatment.
yeah, yes, I'm sorry, very great point. Yeah, so if you look at
Kind of
these
hard to see up
options,
there, but yeah.
yeah, you can see it's it is a little offset window design. This one mimics the first option, and then with this one, you get more panels on the upper level of the window. So yes, the window.
More
design is
traditional, I would
changed.
say, more traditional look. Mr. Tebow. You know, I've kind of been thinking about, as we've been looking through this, that, you know, I think if I remember correctly, we told them to kind of bring multiple, just, you know, the front elevation to kind of give us a sense and give them some feedback. Because in order for us to send it to mayor and council, we're gonna need like all the elevations, you know what I mean? And we were trying to give them a sense. What I'm hoping tonight is that we can give them some good feedback, and what I'm kind of thinking in the back of my mind is with that feedback that maybe they could then work directly with staff to try to fine tune a version, because I don't want them to have to keep on coming back to us over and over and over again, because I think there might be, if we give you some good feedback tonight, then there should be collaboration behind the scenes that then something comes back to us that is pretty good. So they don't have to keep on, you know, coming back. I don't know how everybody else feels about that, but that's kind of what I was thinking in my head. Just that, you know, hopefully then they come back next time and we have something pretty close to being nailed down that we can forward to. Because correct me if I'm wrong, when we bring down this zoning, those elevations need to be part of that.
Yeah, so the concept would be any ordinance that is proposed, that exhibits would be, that ordinance would be the exhibits provided would be subject to that ordinance. One of the exhibits would be the site plan itself, design as well as the architecture. So the thought being that if once the ordinance is adopted with those exhibits, they cannot be substantially changed. Ultimately, a site plan would have to come back to the planning commission where you could make that determination that it is in keeping with the original approval. If it substantially changes, it would have to come back to the process again and amend that ordinance. So, and that's what the zone requires, that the actual site plan itself is part and submitted with the request for this overlay zone.
So, just so I'm clear, so what you hope to get out tonight is some agreement on the main facade for the front. And any other comments with the expectation that the property owner and the staff can work through those, come back next month with the final package.
Either next month or however long it takes them, but with something that's all the elevations and much closer to, but we need to give them good feedback tonight. And I have some thoughts, and I'm sure you guys have some thoughts too, of what I do and do not like about the different elevations. So I don't know whether we just want to dive in.
Yeah, let's just dive in.
Let's just dive in.
Since you're talking, you go first.
Okay. Can you go back to the original example that go back.
Oh, this is.
Yeah, that one, right there. They're headed in the right direction, but like, to me, when I see that picture, to me, that feels more like in character with like you know, it feels more old, you know what I mean? And part of it, when I'm looking at that, if you notice the bump outs, they're wood trim. Like when I was looking at if you go back to 3, Like, you know, you see the wood trim there, go back to that. Like this, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna get up and point. Like, this does not look like that, do you know what I mean? That looks like some kind of like steel kind of thing. And then, you know, I do love. I'm just gonna get up. I do love like this kind of look. You know what I mean, the more traditional looking windows, but then go back to the example that we liked. You notice how these are more prominent compared to if you go back to B and C. Those are much smaller. You understand what I mean? It's just like
Well, the
the,
other one looks like it's a little older and would fit into the city.
I agree.
correct, so
I
the
absolutely agree.
the vibe is not, I hate to say it, it's not. It's better than what it was, but I don't think it's really what we envision as planning commission of wanting something, we don't want it to look exactly like everything else. As far as like all the existing stuff, but we want it to blend a little bit better. And to me, like even, you know, B and C, option B and C, I don't like option A at all. But B and C are not, if you go back to the picture that we like, I want something that looks more like that. Because to me, this, you have the brick element, this wood element that jumps out, that's something you would see in more of a historical setting. The big cornices, and again, it has the windows, it just is more,
Well, as
And keep it.
all right, let me ask you this, as a starting point, I don't like A either.
No.
And if you have B or C, if they're gonna improve one, would it be B or C?
I like C.
I like C because I like
I'd like to see better.
features of it, but there's things that you say that I like to see too.
I don't like the
But
black.
I'm not a big, huge fan of A or B.
I don't like the black.
I like C the
I like-
best, but it's
I
not.
like more brick. I like the sample better. Like, go back to
We like
the
it too.
sample, I like
We all
that one.
that too.
And maybe where the top juts out, if you could have some kind of molding on it. And I like the windows with the panes,
Definitely.
the pane windows. But you know, those things that stick out on the top, whatever they call them, they, even if they, I guess they look a little prairie view, but that would be okay. That looks so much better. Take that and put some of the other windows in it, and I think you got it.
It needs to be more in keeping with what that sample is,
That looks like townhomes.
you know? Well, it just also looks like something that fits.
Looks like it's been there for a while
It,
too.
Yeah.
yeah, it just feels like it blends.
I like the trees
Better.
out front. I don't know what they got trees.
Yeah,
I like trees out front, yeah. That's it.
Go to C, go to C. What do you guys think about the balconies? I think that you could make something. I don't necessarily mind them, but like, I don't like sliders. Like if you're gonna do balconies, I think it needs to be more traditional looking. More like a glass door or something like that, not sliders. I don't like this look where you have the fake. You know, sliders, I think, you know, it's fine, not all the apartments have to have a slider. You know, you could go to more traditional windows there.
Especially since they don't have
They
balconies.
don't have-
They don't have balconies, so why are you pretending it does and having that faux metal grate on, I just not the kind of look I like. You know, and I mean, I guess I can go one way or the other with the balconies, but I think we kind of gave them the sense that we would be
Well,
okay
we
with
gave
some
them
of
the
that.
sense, we gave them the sense
Yeah.
that we didn't mind balconies, but not every unit had to have one.
Correct.
That's kind of what we left.
And
Don't
and
turn
if
it
you
out.
see, they're
Right,
throwing these
exactly.
fake balconies, you know, or. And that's just not the look I think that we're looking for.
That sample one, that didn't have balconies on it, did it?
Yeah, it did
I like
not.
that one better.
Well, I know you like the sample much better, but I'm saying I don't, they
I wouldn't
don't have to
want
be
to see balconies on it.
exactly like,
I wouldn't want to see balconies.
you know. You don't wanna see balconies on it.
No, that one, no. I like it better without balconies.
Do you like the example without balconies or do you like C?
I like this, I like the sample that they have. Without, I like it just as it is. I like it with this.
No, I'm sorry,
big
this
window.
was staff bound, they did not provide,
I know,
the applicant, I don't want to think that the
Yeah, this
applicant
is
said,
gonna be,
but
this is a project we've done before, yeah, so that's just
that's
something
the
that,
look we want.
yeah, that's.
well, but what I'm saying is go to C. I'm saying, I think C is getting closer to where we want, but it's not there. But hopefully staff, you're getting our sense of what we're talking about. But I don't know, Lindy, I know you're saying you don't want balconies at all. I think some of the others are open to the balconies depending on how they're done.
As a compromise,
Yeah.
but not every unit, but I'm not for the fake ones. I don't think the
Yeah.
faux balconies.
And with that though, too, like I say, if you put the trim around the top of the roof to give it that little older look with the trim when it overhangs, instead of just being a flat wall going straight up.
And some of it's building materials too.
What I like about the second one is I like more brick. I don't like all the black. That might be brick on the side, so maybe that is more brick, but I like more brick. The second page has more brick on it. Around the corners and,
Oh, I see what
yeah, I like, and the last one's more black, which to me is very modern. I like more of the brick. Brick, we have a lot of brick in this place.
Well, I think you could do, brick, like maybe different shades of brick.
But go back to the example that that.
I think you could take option C. If you show the architect, hey, option C is the one that we kind of felt most comfortable with. But it needs to be more in that vibe right there. I'd like to see what the architect would come up with. With working with staff, if you guys feel comfortable, I just don't want them to have to keep on coming back and back. If you guys feel like you have a really good sense, I mean, you can also always email us for, some thoughts or comments, because I just don't want them to have to wait, as they're kind of brainstorming it with their architect. I don't want them to necessarily have to wait a whole month till we have a next meeting or something.
I think we're.
Yeah.
I think adding elements like you're mentioning here, treatments like that are things you can certainly take from downtown. And if you're trying to pull in some features of downtown historic district, this is a good way of doing that.
Well, and even how that bumps out, like when the bump out there on that sample one, it's wood, it's like a traditional thing that you would
Yes.
see.
Yes.
Where you go to the bump out on option C, okay, like that is not, it's very boxy, you know what I mean? It doesn't go all the way down, it doesn't feel right. Well, of course, it doesn't have to go all the way, but it just doesn't feel
Well, it does
right.
go all the way down. The
Yeah.
brick wall does go all the way down to first floor level.
Yeah, it just, if you compare this jump out and go back to the sample. It's a very different vibe,
Well, definitely.
very different vibe. To me, this is more like, feels like it works within the confines of, and it looks like, if you notice, they got, on this one, these are actually balconies up here, because the third floor jumps out. Do you see what they did there? Kind of cool.
That I would like.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
I think the important thing is that this building pulls elements of other great buildings in Westminster into this building. It doesn't have to copy any of them, but it pulls those really good elements in. And if we could accomplish that, I feel like we've done a really good job.
I agree.
But I don't feel like the elevations we have tonight.
No, we're not there yet.
Yeah.
That's just my 2 cents.
I agree.
But this is almost a combination of A and B and C, because you have the 3-story element here setback, then you have a 4-story element. Where this is maintaining the 4-story, where this is maintaining 3-story. But you want elements like these sections being 4 stories and this being pushed back, you want anything like that, or you just like this design completely? Because like I said, this gives a different, this looks like.
No, I think that's
4-story.
kind of cool.
This looks like a 3-story.
I really wish their architect would look really hard at that, the sample.
Which I mean, you could take an element here and
Not A, no, A and
I'm
B.
talking about how it goes 4 stories with this bump out, just similar to this goes 4 stories. So it's a combination, you can have a 3-story look, but also some elements be in the 4.
No, I understand what you're saying, if you go back to the sample.
Yeah,
And what's nice is, so, even though this is all on the same plane, this is brick 3-story, but then this goes to siding, so it still makes it, does with your.
yeah.
But actually, this sample that you guys found is just really awesome. It's really awesome from the standpoint of, if you're doing a new development in an older area, this has so much the vibe, I think, that we like.
Yes,
It looks like that looks like a building that's been there for a while.
yes.
Yeah.
And that's what you want, you don't.
But it's new, you can
It's
tell it's
new, it's
new, but it
brand new.
vibes with the old.
But it, like I say, it sticks out and it blends in with an older element that way would
I
go.
think if we could end up with something similar to that, people would be pleased in this town.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And it's really important, I would argue too, like,
Definitely.
from our standpoint, this is like the first type of project like this in downtown Westminster, and there will be more. So it's really important that the vibe is right, because it sets the tone. You know,
And I think it's gonna be good for East Green Street.
I
It's gonna
mean-
be very good for East Green Street.
You could see, honestly, down the road, you could see more of this along East Green Street further up, because there's a lot of vacant property
Yep.
close by, or property that's really underutilized.
Yeah.
Where this could happen. So if it's done right to start with, that could be the example for the rest.
and I think you could see other buildings like, you know, other redevelopment on Main Street where it was like, on the first floor, it was commercial, and then you would have more of that. But that was a great, whoever found that photo, good job.
You look very happy
I
with this.
thought, yeah.
Whoever did that.
I went through a lot of photos, well,
Yeah.
it was direction through what you were talking about,
Yeah.
locations, so I looked at Annapolis, Frederick, the area you were talking,
Where is that?
Where
Yeah, yeah.
Ithaca, I can't remember where this one was, like I said, it had to be
I
about
wanna
10.
go there and
10
go
different
there and see
locations.
it.
I know, I wanna see it. Do a.
Again, this is a rendering, so it would be interesting, I'm trying to see if I can figure out where it is and if it was built.
If it's close by.
It'd be interesting to see what it actually turned
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. But it's just, it has, just even like, if you notice like. Even here, it looks like if, you know, the brick, you know how they have that brick header coming out like that, if you noticed on it. It just, there's all these little elements that kind of play with giving that old vibe. And no offense to these options, I don't see enough of that here. This still looks too modern, too modern.
It looks too plain.
But I think it's a big improvement from the original.
No, I agree, I'm not trying to say, yeah, it's an improvement over what's before, but it's not. You know, it's not there, and I think it's just a matter of effort to get there, because. You know, from the planning commission standpoint, we said 4 floors, I mean, so, you know what I mean, like, that's a good thing for the developer. We just want that elevation to be firing on all cylinders. And I think it's super important for the community and for the long term.
Okay, so are you guys, everyone clear what we're looking for?
Oh,
So,
got the front side here, but.
we'll staff will work
Rear of
with
the building.
with Bill, the applicant, to the architecture to work on some of the details as we get them. We'll provide comments as well, but I think we could forward them to the planning commission, they'll be BCC to you, you can't discuss it with each other. And
Well,
certainly
we
provide
need-
comments
we
back to
need
staff.
All 4, we need
Yeah.
a complete facade.
Yeah.
And that has to be part of our recommendation.
Yeah.
We'll
And
send
I-
comments back to you then.
And yes, yeah,
Okay.
so, you'll get it, when we start getting to that, I'll send out to you, but again, it'll be, I won't send it, I'll send it BCC.
Yeah.
So that way, if you respond, you just make sure you just respond to
BCC.
blind copy. So if you are
We
responding,
can't be deliberating, we cannot be deliberating via email, but we're trying to approve. And I'm not saying that we might not need another meeting past our next meeting. But I'm just saying that collaboration, I think, will just help speed up the process for the applicant so that they don't have to, you know, because I think you two have a sense of what we're looking for.
Well, can you provide any feedback or what you want the other side to look like? The side that isn't Basin Street, the one
Well,
that
I think it's be consistent all the way around.
Yeah, kind of consistent, yeah, I mean, the backside from what's shown here appears to be a little flatter. Doesn't have as much depth to this side.
Would you like to see more depth in the back?
Well, not necessarily more depth.
And again, this is me when, you know, I asked the applicant just to pay attention to the front facade so we can get the details down. I didn't want to incur too much cost of having to do full architecture, so ultimately, at the end, once we get the front design, once we get the elements, I think that he'll be able to carry that around the building.
Mhm. Yeah, that was the plan.
And stuff.
Okay,
That was like they don't want
And
something.
I know that we're spending a lot of time on this as the Planning and Zoning Commission, but. You know, what my hope is that if we do a really good job here, then when it goes to the mayor and council. That it looks really, really good and everybody's really happy, and then because the mayor and council, they don't take forever.
The difference about this process from your typical ordinance is an ordinance would come to the mayor and common council for introduction. Then they forward it to the planning commission for recommendation. The planning commission can review the ordinance, have work sessions on it. Before they provide recommendations back to the mayor and common council. We're eliminating that aspect of it. We're basically doing that middle part now because you are crafting the ordinance that's gonna be introduced. And it won't have to come back to planning commission, so there is time, so again, time wise, it's fairly consistent, we're not making it longer than it would be otherwise because you remove that middle element. We typically do, so. And also with that, I want you to look at what the city attorney provided as well, same concept. If you have comments specific to that, let us know and we'll mark, but again, don't talk to each other, just individual comments back. So it'd be nice to wrap up the recommendation letter, the ordinance and the architecture the next meeting. If we have to have one more, it's only on architecture. That's my hope.
Okay, gotcha, okay. But you guys have a good sense of what we're
Yes.
thinking based off of our conversation tonight.
Yes.
Okay.
If I could make, if you could please clarify regarding the balconies, so do you want them or you don't? No fake balconies, I got that, but what about regular?
Yeah, I don't think we have problems, some of them had balconies, you know, the fake balconies was.
Right.
Like the way they started.
Balconies on the-
And not every single unit needs to have a balcony.
Correct.
I mean, the ones that are recessed back, yeah.
Go back to the
balconies.
sample.
The sample balcony.
So if you notice that these have balconies up here because it works with it. But also, I mean, if there was a balcony that was more inset there,
We haven't noticed.
I don't think we would be that upset with it. I don't know that we want balconies on like the parts that stick out
The very
far.
front wall, no.
Nor
Yeah.
the fake balcony.
So, but like on the third floor, because of the way it sets back, is a great opportunity to have these balconies and they work with the building.
Yeah.
And still seem old timey, but also on this elevation, I could easily imagine you being able to get some balconies in here. But they're kind of set into the building, so they don't jump out at you. And so that's kind of what I think we're envisioning. So if the balconies are too prominent, I don't know that we like that vibe. But I think balconies are kind of cool. If I was living there, I would maybe like a balcony. I'd like to look out on the street and see my neighbors walking by me, so.
How about the back of the building? Are you concerned about balconies sticking out?
In the back,
Yes.
I wouldn't be.
Not a bit, that's a little.
The buildings behind are set up higher, you're gonna have parking back there, we have that green space, we can provide landscaping back there, so it's not gonna be as prominently viewed from. So there's other elements we can do to soften the view, I still think we want some depth on the back. To carry that same concept, but I don't think it needs to be as prominent as we have in the front.
To me, the front elevation and the rear elevation are two very different. I mean, they need to work with each other, you know, you don't wanna have such a clash. But what that overall looks like on the back is a different element than what it looks like on the front. So I think we'd be more open to,
I think balconies in the back would be acceptable. I don't
Yes.
think they're concerned on the back for
to me, it would
balconies.
be, I mean,
Same
like I
front.
say, it's not the face of the building.
Yeah.
And it's overlooking the parking lot. So it's not gonna stick out when you look at it
Yeah.
in the back.
I think it just has to carry, personally, I think it has to carry elements from the front, but it doesn't have to be exactly like the front.
correct, yeah.
It has to fit together.
You can have a bump out, but it doesn't have to be as deep or
Yes,
as depth of a bump
right,
out, but it shouldn't be a flat facade.
Correct.
Okay,
And I think the balconies, if they just don't have those cheap sliding glass doors. Maybe
Oh, I don't like that,
they-
yeah, it's gonna make it
look
too
like a
hot.
cheap apartment.
Yeah.
Yeah, that,
You would never have that it just seems totally out of place.
and some old buildings do have balconies, that they don't have those
More like-
sliding glass
More like
doors.
French doors.
Yeah, something like that. Just nice, I don't know.
French doors.
Yeah,
French doors.
French doors would be.
A slider is feels very modern.
Okay. All right, any further comments? Commission. All right, so Mr. Depot and staff, you're clear what your
Yep.
mission is?
Absolutely, yeah.
All right. We'll move on to the next item, and hopefully we can get this on the agenda next month. We'll at least be ready to kind of hopefully move forward.
Yes.
Excellent. All right. Okay, next item. Oh, wow, you get to. Oh, information item, Carroll County Liaison Report. So if you could introduce yourself again.
Hi, I'm Carlisle Palat. I am the liaison for Westminster for Carroll County Planning. I have a couple of items, some updates. So starting with water and sewer, our fall 2024 amendment is in process. The County Planning and Zoning Commission approved the amendment on November 19th. Commissioners to receive a briefing in December. The fall amendments include Hampstead, Manchester, and Freedom. And the spring 2025 amendment cycle closes on February 1st, 2025. Updates on the housing study. Mosaic presented draft recommendations to the Planning and Zoning Commission on November 6th for comment.
Is that the firm that's?
Yeah, it's the firm that's doing the housing study, yes. The presentation and draft executive summary were sent to municipalities for review and comment on November 8th. The final study is expected to be presented to the Board of County Commissions and posted online in December. And if you have any more questions about the housing study, you can contact Nate Fawcett. So we have a couple of text amendment updates. The Housing Expansion and Affordability Act is being discussed due to the state legislation passed in the 2024 legislative session. Public hearing was on November 14th. The Board of County Commissioners are voting for adoption on December 5th.
Question. Briefly state with that.
So this is, Hannah Weber's, working on this amendment. I'm not 100% sure what that amendment is for the Housing Expansion and Affordability Act.
We can reach out to Hannah and send a copy to the planning, so.
Yeah, I'm not.
Yes, that'd be great. Appreciate it.
So there was a public hearing for the solar site design requirements on November 14th. The Board of County Commissioners are voting for adoption on December 5th. These requirements are being discussed due to multiple applicants to the Maryland Public Service Commission for solar facilities in the county's agriculture zone. The county does not allow solar facilities in the agriculture zone, so there are no site design requirements. This amendment would establish possible site design requirements for these projects in landscaping, buffers, and setbacks, etc.
I'm sorry, real quick,
So
so that
that's
one,
so does the Public Service Commission issue a certificate of need?
Oh, yeah.
they
And
can,
then that allows them to circumvent local
Yes.
subdivision requirements.
yes, well, unless you actually have regulations, you can't deny, but you
So this is why the county's coming in now to try to.
at least provide some level of regulation, not to deny, but it's more design and elements and things like that, so.
Tom, before I was on council, I was planning and zoning for the county, and we purposely had provisions to allow solar on agriculture. For the very concern about the state coming in. And then when the new commissioners got elected, and it was very limited in what you could do in agriculture. But then when the new county commissioners came in, they killed that, okay? And they did not allow it at all as ag land. And then, of course, what's happened is these solar developers were like, okay, go to the Public Service Commission and get a certificate of need. And so there were rules in place, the county repealed them, and now they're trying to put rules back in place because they got outflanked with the Public Service Commission. Just to be frank, that's
But
what's.
the horse is out of the barn, because they're already into.
They should have, in all my
They should never
humble
gotten rid of
opinion,
it.
they should have never gotten rid of what we did
I
prior.
worked for years to get that together, to be fair.
It's a lengthy process you have to go through, even through the commission, public meetings and other elements, so I think there's still that possibility that by adopting it, they could possibly regulate, this is my understanding, I don't work for the
I
county, so.
think the intent
it's a
is
mess.
to give the county a chance to have their fingerprints
That's
on
what
it.
it- yes.
But, and as far as I know of, it might be 7, I can't remember how many, but none of them are actually within the city's growth boundary. Right, they're all outside the city's growth boundary, so there's no ag land or anything like that within our growth boundary being proposed. Just
Some of
over.
them actually, they did apply, made it even larger than what originally were proposed.
Yeah, because we had, if I remember correctly, when we originally had it on planning and zoning for the county, it was very limited
20
in
acres
what you
maximum.
could do.
Well, people in this county are finding out that Public Service Commission has a lot of power.
Oh, yeah.
Like what's the Piedmont Reliability Project and the power line. And now with solar, it's a big deal.
And that's why sometimes you need to preemptively have regulations in place,
Yeah.
because it helps you as a governmental authority to have
So I think we have to look ahead to things like that, these large like a data storage facility that are power, but a lot of people, I'm not saying it's true or not, but they believe that this electricity is more to draw these big data centers to Maryland to locate. I understand the intent, is it good or bad? I don't know, but Public Service Commission has a big role in things, and sometimes it allows them to it allows people to sidestep local processes. And that's what gets people upset. Because anybody can come to our commission and speak. But with PSC, it's a little bit different because it's not here, it's not local. And the people on that don't always understand local issues. So,
Well, and also with the Piedmont project, I don't think it's been handled very well by the people,
It's been
because they have not
disaster
had
from
a
the beginning.
very good open process. I know and I was involved in that personally, when Lehigh did the conveyor system, there was a lot of community outreach and
I was there.
a lot of discussion and feedback and participation, and the first thing the first thing out of their mouths was not, we're gonna, take your land by eminent domain. What?
yeah, well, I mean, first of all, having worked in government for many, many years, eminent domain doesn't always sit very well in this county.
No, that's not the first thing out of your mouth.
Hard subject for people to swallow.
I think it sits well
That was it, I
anyway.
know where it sits well, but it's.
I think the first thing, if anybody, we're getting off the topic, but I like to talk sometimes too. But I think the thing that kind of bothered me a little bit about that was that they didn't look at the existing right of way. In other words, we already have right of way.
Yes.
Why in the world wouldn't you use what you have?
Correct.
I felt the same thing, it's just a
I mean,
little
just
confusing.
common basic things like that don't make sense.
Because I think they don't want to pay somebody to use that right away, that's what I
That's
think.
probably true.
Yeah, but anyway.
I'm sorry, hijacked, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, we're going off topic, it does not go through with the city of Westminster.
No.
This is going off topic.
Updates on the
Sorry, sorry.
It is okay. I just have some updates on the master plan. So we launched the website for the master plan. It is carroll2035.org.
This is the county, the
Yes,
new
the
county master
new
plan.
county master
Okay.
plan. The website has been launched. Public outreach activities are being planned for January and February. We're getting together some working groups, representatives from the community, different aspects. And then, discussions are beginning about how to include the municipalities in the process.
Speaking of which, to our staff, when do we have to update our master plan?
so.
Or is this a short
So,
topic?
no, so, it was a 2009 master plan.
That's what we approved the last.
Well, then
Sort
in
of.
2017, when we had to add an element, we reviewed the entire master plan, and the planning commission essentially determined that it's still valid. So we view the 2017 as the date, the last master plan. So we have till 2027. It used to be 6 years, it's now every 10 years. So we have until we have to do it in 2027.
Okay, well, and partly because of our limited ability to grow because of water, it's kind of.
That was the main reason.
It hasn't been a big thing,
Economic
so,
downturn through
Yeah.
2009 up and then you had that issue, you had lack of water, droughts, so so it was deemed that it was still all valid.
but when we get to 2027, then that strikes me as that would be a more serious look at our updating our master plan, because hopefully we'll be in a different position.
Well, I'm glad we have till 2027 with the states looking at revamping what the master plan should be. It's exciting with the new legislation is looking at it and trying to make it a more working document versus just a
Interesting.
guide, so.
Each chapter, possibly working on each chapter and approving that, instead of one full document, you do this as kind of like a rotating basis.
Interesting.
I introduced that in Gaithersburg, that's the only jurisdiction that's able to do that. I went to MVP years ago and I asked, why can't we do it independently instead of doing one master one? Because you need to really focus on each element as best as you can versus trying to fit everything into one review. So we actually update, I think Gaithersburg still does it, updates each element separately. So if they're doing the housing only, and this elements they go back and fix solely on transfer, they can do that, but it's not a full document, and that's the.
Okay, interesting.
Okay.
That's all I have.
I don't know that.
Sorry, we're really going. We're going down rabbit holes.
Good discussion. All right. So, planning commission comments, since we've already made a lot of comments, nobody has any more comments, right? Okay. So entertain a motion to adjourn.
David, I have a comment
Okay.
or a question. I wanted to know everyone's availability for a December 21st meeting.
Ooh,
It was the 19th.
19th, it's the Thursday, I'm sorry.
That's the next one is December 19th, so. it would be.
Yeah, 19th, I'm sorry, the 21st is a Sunday. Yeah.
I mean,
and
I'm good. I'm good.
I'm actually good, so, and you said the 21st, that's.
I don't know. On a Saturday.
Unless you really want to,
You might start infringing on my cruise.
Oh, wait, you said the 19th.
yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I do have something that day, but I should hopefully be able to make it by evening. A
So-
medical thing that day, so.
We will be having a public hearing that night if everybody is still able to make it. So-
What's the issue?
That's the vape shop, the text amendment. So we have a text amendment going before the Mayor and Common Council this Monday for a text amendment to define specialty shop, tobacconist, and vape shops. And also locate those uses within zoning districts in the city. So there was an issue with some vaping businesses operating without obtaining proper approvals, and we noticed that the ordinance, the only reference to it is a tobacconist. And that's only allowed in the NC zone, the zone we're talking about right tonight. That's the only place tobacconist was listed. Again, this is one of those times where the NC zone was implemented and added to the ordinance, where they added many uses, but didn't then expand those to other districts. So it's fixing a problem, but also defining these elements as well and making a distinction between them so that.
Putting better guardrails up so that you don't end up in a situation where you have them all over the place on top of each other.
Yeah, so that'll be before you.
Okay. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second. Motion made second to adjourn, all in favor say aye, opposed no. Motion carried.
Thank you.